and welcome to WINNOW, a couple's close reading of the Iliad and the Odyssey. I'm Owen Gemmer.
And I'm Isabella Gemmer. We are married, and we love to read books together.
In particular, in this podcast, we are reading the Iliad and the Odyssey, and this episode 1 will be about book 1 of the Iliad. We're really excited to begin this adventure together with each other and with you guys. Yeah. So let's dive in.
Yep, excited to begin book 1. We are going to begin by doing a summary of book 1 for both our benefit and the audience's.
Yes, but we don't want it to just be reading a SparkNote style summary. So we've kind of come up with a little game that we're going to play where we will alternate sentences back and forth, and we just have to pick up where the other leaves off. So Bella, you want to start us off?
Yeah. So broadly speaking, the first book begins with the speaker of the poem calling to the muse to speak the story of Achilles' rage through him.
Yes, and so we get a little bit of backstory as to what prompted this rage. A priest named Chryses came to the Greek camp and was pretty upset.
Yes, Chryses, Apollo's priest, was upset because the Greeks, the Achaeans, Agamemnon specifically, has his daughter.
Yep, they were on a raid of a city. They defeated this city and took spoils, some women among them, and divided them up. And Chryses' daughter, Chryseis, was Agamemnon's prize, and he wants her back.
Yes, but Agamemnon refuses to give his daughter back to him.
Despite very, very generous ransom offers of gifts, Agamemnon just rebukes him and says, "Get out of here," and kind of curses him. And, well, things go poorly.
Yeah. So Chryses basically prays to Apollo and is like, give them your wrath, essentially. And Apollo, there's a plague, and it's like literally Apollo starts shooting arrows at the army for days at a time.
But I think it's metaphorically, these are like arrows of sickness and sort of this plague that is sort of spreading through the camp, and it is leading to both widespread death and widespread panic because now people are dying, not really even in battle. So they need to figure out what's going on.
So all the very important men gather for a council, essentially.
And the first person that they call is named Calchas. He is a priest, an augur, knows all the kind of divination, can read the signs and speak to the gods, and they ask him to give his best explanation as to why so many of their people are dying.
Yeah, and he's essentially like, well, it's because Agamemnon refused to give back the priest's daughter, and Apollo is angry at us.
Yeah, it's pretty simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
And so then the Greeks, led by Achilles, have to figure out what to do. And Achilles is like, all right, well, Agamemnon, give her back and we'll stop dying.
Yes, which Agamemnon's response is basically like, no.
Yeah, and Agamemnon's like, I am the king of kings, the lord of the Achaeans, and I deserve my prize. Why would it be fair for you all to have your prizes when mine goes away? Like, no, I'm not giving up my prize because then I'll have less than you all.
Achilles' response is basically like, just give her back, and then later we'll make sure you get like repaid fourfold or more than you had before.
And Agamemnon still refuses and becomes mad now, particularly at Achilles for giving this suggestion, and kind of flips on him and is like, well, no, instead I'll give her up because I don't want my people to die, but I'm going to come and I'm going to take your prize, Briseis, as recompense for my loss.
And then Achilles is basically goes on a little rant about how when they go into battle, he's the one who's doing all the work. He still lets everyone divide the spoils equally, but everybody knows that he puts in the most work. And so like he's like highly threatened by Agamemnon's.
Yeah, and he brings up the argument that like, I came here for you. I have no personal stake in this war, and yet I'm the one doing all this fighting. Like, he's kind of, in modern terms, basically threatening to rage quit. Like, if I can't have my prizes, like, why the heck am I here in the first place?
And Achilles gets so mad at Agamemnon, he basically like reaches for his sword and like pulls it out of his, like goes to pull it out of his hilt, essentially.
So then Athena/Minerva comes down, grabs Achilles by the hair, and whispers to him, knowing that he is the only one who can recognize her, and she tells him to cool down and stop for a sec.
Achilles is a little bit calmed by the goddess telling him what to do, and he does not pull out his sword.
Yeah. And so basically his next plan is to relent, to let Agamemnon have his way, but then to pull out of the war and basically say, I'm going to go take my people. We're going to chill by our ships, and you guys have fun all dying because I'm the best warrior, and without me, it's going to go pretty poorly for you.
And Agamemnon's like, sure, you do that. In the meantime, I will return the daughter back to Apollo's priest, and I'm also going to take your prize, Briseis, away.
Yep. So kind of everybody goes back home. Things calm down for a little bit. Agamemnon selects Odysseus to lead the crew that's going to take Chryseis back to her father and kind of return them. He sends another group of people to Achilles to go get Briseis.
And Achilles lets her go without putting up any physical fight.
And then Odysseus goes with some other men and Chryseis to her father and returns her. They offer sacrifices to Apollo. Apollo is pleased, and so Apollo stops the plague.
After Briseis is taken from Achilles, he is really sad. He goes out behind his tent and cries, and specifically cries for his mom.
Yes. And his mother, Achilles is a demigod, so his mother is a sea goddess, a lower sea goddess named Thetis, and so she sees her son's distress and comes to have a conversation with him.
Yep, and he explains the whole situation to her, and how sad he is, and he tells her he's not going to fight anymore until they give him the respect he thinks he's owed.
And Thetis, shockingly, does take his side. She's like, yeah, you do deserve all that respect, and they did you wrong, and screw them, I'm going to help you. Let's make Agamemnon regret everything that he did.
Yeah, so his mom, Thetis, goes all the way to the top of Mount Olympus and asks a favor of Zeus. One time she did Zeus a favor, so now Zeus is going to do her a favor. And Zeus is going to make sure that the Greeks, the Achaeans, start to lose the war because Achilles is not helping anymore.
Yeah, and this plan goes pretty flawlessly. Thetis asks the favor, Zeus grants the favor, and seems pretty amenable to this pretty big request to entirely turn the tides of the war. But they all kind of make these agreements with one another.
Mm-hmm. And then up on Olympus, Hera gets wind of the little deal they made, and she confronts Zeus about it.
But she doesn't know all the details. She just has this suspicion that Zeus is up to something, and Zeus is fairly cagey with her in his response and actually physically threatens her that if she keeps prying into his plans, he will harm her.
Yeah. Yep. And so Hera kind of like backs down, and then Hephaestus gets involved a little bit, which is Hera's son.
Yeah, and Hephaestus basically pulls her aside and was like, hey, if we get too involved with all the mortals, it's going to ruin our fun. We've got a big banquet planned. Don't make Zeus angry. Let's just let him do his thing, and we'll all have a nice feast and be happy.
And I believe that is how the book basically ends.
Yep. Good job.
Good job. We'll have to see how long that was. That took a little bit longer than I thought.
Like 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Wow. Okay. Well, if you're still with us, thank you for being here. So now that we've got the summary of book 1 out of the way, we're going to start by discussing just like overarching themes. And yeah, basically that's it.
Yeah, like if this is your first time reading the Iliad, like these are kind of the main ideas. Any teacher or professor or online summary is going to want you to take away with to sort of get the main ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to do a more tertiary view of main ideas and themes. And then if you stick with us to the end, we're going to transition to something like what we're going to consider a little bit more of like a deep question.
So one thing that everybody loves to point out, in ancient Greek, word order doesn't matter the same way. You don't always have just like subject, verb, object. You can kind of play with things. And so the first word in Greek is menon, which is the accusative form of the word menos, which means rage. It's related to our word for mania, but it always pretty much is translated as rage. And so that's the first word of the Iliad. And so it kind of is the first main theme of this book.
Mm-hmm. And the book does center obviously on Achilles's rage, but at least my translation, I'd be interested to hear about your translation. My translation refers to a lot of other characters' rage in this chapter. There's Hera has rage. I think Zeus has rage.
I mean, Agamemnon is the first one to really have rage, right? Chryses comes back with a pretty reasonable offer. He's like, hey, you took my daughter. I have all this gold and all this treasure. Please just give me my daughter back and I'll give you all this. Like, kind of seems very reasonable. And Agamemnon is the first one to like get really mad at him and just cast him out. Mm-hmm. So I think Agamemnon at least initiates this sort of cycle of rage.
Yeah, it's definitely like a cycle. It's definitely, the rage is like, it's something that's kind of passed on from person to person throughout the book.
Yeah, it's contagious.
Yeah, like it kind of starts, you could say that like the cycle starts with Chryses, Apollo's priest. He's outraged because his daughter's been taken from him. Mm-hmm. And then in asking, he doesn't get her back when he asks. So then he passes his rage to Apollo. Mm-hmm. And then the Greeks get concerned, right? And then it's sort of like that rage gets passed to Agamemnon, which gets passed to Achilles, mm-hmm. which gets passed to his mother. Mm-hmm. And then from his mother to Zeus to Hera. Like it's definitely like a clear chain throughout the book, which is really nice.
Yeah. I'm curious your translation, because I noted in mine, reading Chapman was really great because of, again, the vividness of his language. So there's a passage where this is right after Calchas gives his speech, kind of saying like, hey, this is the fault of Agamemnon for not giving Chryseis back. And then this line is, a couple lines is so good. Thus he sate, and up the great in sway heroic Agamemnon rose, eagerly bearing all. His mind's seat overcast with fumes, an anger general filled all his faculties. His eyes sparkled like kindling fire, which sternly cast upon the priest. Thus vented he his ire. Mm. I just love, right, like this, his mind's seat overcast with fumes. That idea of this, the seat of his mind, his reason, was overcast with the smoke of his anger. Again, I'm sure that this is not a super literal translation, but I'm taking this as like just an English poem, and I think that's a brilliant description of what like rage can do to you. Do you want to read that in Wilson's translation?
Yes. Mine says, but Agamemnon, son of Atreus, the mighty lord and warrior, stood up, aggrieved, his black heart full of furious rage. His eyes shone bright as fire. He scowled at Calchas and said to him.
Yeah. That's actually pretty close. Yeah, like mine has his eyes sparkled like kindling fire, and yours has his eyes shone bright as fire. Yeah, and then I like the rhyme of fire and ire. There's sometimes the rhyming does get annoying in the Chapman, but there are some times when you get a really good couplet, and it his eyes sparkled like kindling fire, which sternly cast upon the priest. Thus vented he his ire. We obviously have talked a little bit about Agamemnon's rage. Do you read his rage as pretty unreasonable and just a little bit ridiculous? Because I think these descriptions also show it as, like he's overcome with rage. He's not thinking clearly. And I tend to agree. Like, I think his anger is pretty misplaced and is pretty, like, just blatantly, he just seems wrong.
Agamemnon's?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the book does a really good job of, you're kind of on Achilles' side from the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't even know how, but I'm on his side. I'm like, you probably do most of the work. I don't know. I already feel like I wouldn't agree with Agamemnon.
Yeah, I mean, like, he had the opportunity to take the ransom, right? He didn't have to get to the point of having nothing. That's his main complaint. It's like, well, now I'll be left with nothing. It's like, well, you gave up the opportunity to take the ransom that Chryses offered to you at the beginning. If you had just accepted that, you wouldn't be with nothing. You would have a bunch of treasure. But because you refuse that, now you're faced with having nothing to show for your spoils, and now you're getting really mad about that. But even then, he refuses Achilles' offer that's basically like, well, when we sack Troy finally, we'll give you like 4 times the amount that all of us get. Like, it seems like a pretty good deal. He turns down 2 what I think are pretty good deals.
At least Achilles claims that when they go and they put the work in, Agamemnon is not there, like, with the men putting in the work.
Yeah. He's the general, kind of like from the back of the lines doing the commander stuff.
Yeah. This is a little bit of outside information, but I wonder about, why is Agamemnon there? Because I believe they're there because Helen was Agamemnon's brother's wife.
Yes.
Menelaus.
Yes.
Menelaus and Agamemnon are brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So he's I see Agamemnon as like, he's there because like his little brother, got something taken from him. And he's like there to like, be the big brother. I don't know if he is the big brother, but he's acting like big brother.
Right. Yeah, but I think that's worthy of mention, right? Is that this sort of small argument within the war begins about sort of taking women, but the war itself also began as a result of Paris taking Helen from Menelaus. And so all the conflict, both the macro scale of the entire war and now this micro scale, like little argument that's happening among the Greeks, are all caused by sort of men taking women from each other. And I think that's, like, we're kind of making it casual, but like all of this is kind of about treating women as property and concubines and all of that. That's pretty messed up.
I don't know if it is definitely like the 2 examples you bring up is definitely an example of a man taking woman and then not and refusing to give her back. But I would like to point out that, and I don't, if you're really concerned about spoilers for the end of the book, I guess sorry, like it's been out a long time, without going into too much detail. Basically, at the end, Achilles has the body of Hector and is refusing to give that body back to his father. But the end of the entire Iliad is basically Achilles returning Hector's body to his father. And I think thinking about that as the last bookend, and this is the beginning bookend, right? You have a similar situation where a father wants his child back.
Yeah.
And
oh, whoa, yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Uh-huh.
Like it really does start and end in almost the same way.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that and then track sort of all of these, parent-child relationships and this idea of like family and bodies and these kinds of things being important.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned that I too tend to be on Achilles' side. And so given that we're on his side, so to speak, we think he has the kind of more righteous argument. Do you think his response to his anger is sort of valid, where he's like, I'm going to sit out? Like, I'm not going to duel Agamemnon. I'm not going to try and kill him or anything like that. I'm just going to go sort of sit on the sidelines and let you guys suffer and kind of lord it over you. Like, oh, you'll come begging for my help and then I won't be there. Do you see that as a mature sort of thing of like he's being nonviolent? Or is it really actually kind of passive-aggressive and petty where he's like, I'm going to let you guys die and I'm not going to help you and I'm going to sit here and laugh at you?
I guess it could be seen as petty. I guess I'm thinking like in Game of Thrones, or something like that, there would be a duel. There would be a one-on-one, conflict. But that doesn't happen. It's almost like I wonder if Achilles is saying that Agamemnon, I don't know if one-on-one duels were culturally a thing back then, but if they were, I wonder if Achilles like is kind of saying like, Agamemnon isn't worth
Yeah.
you're not worth having a duel with, He makes Agamemnon less than him by refusing to even like be in conflict with him.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
and I do think, to critique Achilles, because I do think he's not perfect or really even potentially likable, right? All of this, he's the one who calls the meeting where he's like, "Hey, Apollo's killing all these people. Like, there's this plague going around. A bunch of our people are dying, right? So he's like, we need to prevent our people from dying." So obviously that's an honorable thing. He wants to figure out the solution to this. But his ultimate response is to knowingly allow more of his people to continue dying, but in the war. So they solve the Apollo problem, but now Achilles is like, well, this war is going to continue and I'm not going to participate. And I know because I'm so great, my lack of participation will cause you all to suffer. And so in some ways, he actually becomes what Apollo is doing by basically indirectly causing the death of more of his comrades.
Yeah. And it's also weird. It's like he claims that just by sitting out, more of their people will die. But why does he have to why does he have to make it worse? Because why does he need to get the gods involved to make the casualties even worse?
That's a good point. Yeah, he could have just sat out and be like, the war will continue, but he actually doubles down and is like, not only will I sit out, but I'm going to get my mom to go get Zeus to go even harder in support of the Trojans and the support of our enemies.
Yeah, to support the enemies and make the casualties of the Achaeans even greater.
Yeah, and so
that's pretty petty.
Yeah, I think it very is. And so I think it's really interesting, right, in this first section to think about this conflict between Agamemnon and Achilles. And I want to think about how the author even biases us a little bit towards Achilles, more than just through the plot, but actually through the language itself. So we're going to go into a little section we like to call Greek time.
Greek time. Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you read the first 7 lines of the Iliad, they're known as the proem or the invocation. It ends with, from whom first strife begun, betwixt Atreides, king of men, and Thetis' godlike son, or will you read it in your translation?
Starting with the conflict between great Agamemnon, lord of men, and glorious Achilles.
Yes. Yeah. So, right, the invocation sets up the conflict between Agamemnon, who's referred to as Atreides. Many people are referred to by their patronymic. So Agamemnon and Menelaus were sons of Atreus. So Atreides is basically, son of Atreus. Ironically, the same last name that's in Dune.
Oh, got him.
And then Achilles is referred to as godlike Achilles. So in the Greek, we'll put this up on screen. I'm going to butcher the metrical pronunciation. Again, nobody really knows how this was pronounced. But the Greek describing the two of them is Atreides to Anox Andron, Kaideus Achilleus. So Atreides refers to Agamemnon, the son of Atreides, or Atreus. To Anox is lord, and then Andron is of men. So Agamemnon, lord of men, and then Dios is godlike. Dios, like many of our Latin and English and Greek words with God are deified and all that, and then Achilles. But I think what's so interesting about this is the sound of the words Atreides to Anox Andron. There's a lot of alliteration, right? All of those words start with A, and then there's also this internal consonance of the N sound and the D sound. Atreides to Anox Andron. It kind of drones on and on. It's a little bit repetitive. Atreides to Anox Andron. And then it goes the Kai, which means and then Dios Achilleus. And so it kind of rhymes. That's not an exact rhyme, but the ending of the line is so much more powerful. I think the beginning lulls you a little bit. Atreides to Anox Andron, Kaideus Achilleus. And so it kind of is like Agamemnon, this boring guy, he's lord of men, yeah, whatever, and then godlike Achilles.
Yeah, it would be like, and you have the guy, the king, whatever, but don't forget about the greatest warrior ever who
Yeah,
lived.
right.
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, because right, like Lord of Men, the epithet given to Agamemnon there, that's high, right? Like Lord of Men, like that's, there's not many lords of men. So you think like, oh, this guy's great. But then Achilles gets godlike. Oh, you're Lord of Men? Yeah, but I'm godlike. And so there's this inherent, I think, favor towards Achilles as like, yeah, he's kind of the better one of the two.
Yeah. Do you think that that might be part of the source of conflict? Because like Agamemnon knows he is like he's the highest ranked among men.
Right. He has the political power.
Yeah, but Achilles he has power that is more divine in nature, and why he might not be the highest ranked among men. He's like in a category of his own,
Right.
a category Agamemnon cannot be in.
Yeah. Well, and I think there is just the practicality too of like, it seems like everybody does agree that Achilles is the best warrior. Like he probably is right that like when they're in battle, like Achilles is doing most of the work and is the best. And so there is this, like Agamemnon has political strength, but Achilles has physical strength. And obviously like you need both in an army, but like you kind of need the physical stuff more.
Yeah.
And so, Agamemnon might have this insecurity of like, and Achilles kind of calls him out on that, right? Like, he's like, yeah, like I go into battle and like you're just chilling here in the tents. And that makes Agamemnon insecure.
If you know other stories about Agamemnon, you're probably biased against him also.
Yes.
Because of how he sacrificed his daughter before they began the journey to Troy. He sacrificed his only daughter so that they would have a safe and successful journey to Troy. And I know also that his wife is really angry at him for being the worst husband ever.
Yeah.
And when he returns from the war, he's going to get got.
Yes. Yeah.
And
this obviously brings up the fact that like, right, original readers and listeners to this poem knew these characters as part of greater mythology. Like they weren't just understanding them in the context of this story. They knew, many of these other myths and different variations and things like this. And so, it's kind of like, in the Batman versus Superman, like everybody knows Batman's kind of vibe and Superman's kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And can debate who's better or whatever.
Yeah. There's even a subtle, in book one, there's Agamemnon says he wants to keep Chryses' daughter because she is just like his wife Clytemnestra, but better.
And a virgin. Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
He's like, she's just like my wife that I have back home, but she's just like a little bit hotter.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ooh, that's just kind of gross,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously all of this also makes us question the relationship of the gods and the mortals, right? God like Achilles, he is favored among the gods. And then Athena gets involved. He goes to his mother, who goes to Zeus, and Hera gets involved. And so pretty much like half of the chapter is also dedicated to the gods and their interactions. And so we need to talk about kind of, the way that the divine and the human interact with one another in this particular opening that then cascades into the rest of the book.
Yeah. I guess, on the surface level, what I would think about that is it feels like the problems of the mortals is like way more intense. Even though the gods have, it seems like a good amount of power and sway over like what happens to the mortals, it does feel like they're up there having a great time, and if things feel more like a sitcom up there, and things feel very like gritty and real. Yeah,
and obviously this is largely due to the nature of the gods being immortal and the humans being mortal, right? Like the humans are like, we're gonna die and that's gonna be it. And the gods are like, well, whatever, right? So there's that. I think that's true in a lot of stories, right? Like even in Lord of the Rings with sort of like the elves and the men, where like the humans, because their lifespan is so much shorter, like are all about action, and the elves tend to sort of stay out of things, or to be more kind of aloof. And in the same way here, the humans are much more kind of intense about everything because their problems are more urgent, especially for Achilles.
I think that ties into how Achilles' mom, Thetis, she just feels so bad for Achilles when he gets really sad with all his problems. Probably because of that strange dynamic where she's immortal and she recognizes that he isn't necessarily.
Yeah, and we'll also talk more about this as the book goes because this is setting up this future conflict with Achilles where there's this prophecy that Achilles will either like die young and be incredibly famous or will live to be old, but then nobody knows him. And so that conflict becomes really important. And so Thetis knows that there's a very good chance Achilles will die young. And she wants to make sure that if he's going to die young, that he dies with respect and honor and glory and all of this.
Yeah, there's a real sense of urgency about Achilles' life that the gods feel no sense of urgency. None at all. Even when Achilles asks Thetis for help and she's like, okay, I'll go talk to Zeus. But then she's like, but Zeus is partying over somewhere else. He won't be back for like 12 days. And so when he comes back after 12 days, I'll talk to him.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and she does. Like, she does live up to her end of the bargain. But yeah,
Yeah.
that even is still this like, well, yeah, give it a few days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. The gods still operate on like a really lengthy time scale. They're not like, they don't snap their fingers and things happen immediately.
Right. So the next thing that we want to do with all of these is to try and find some moments in the text that are going to be more obscure that maybe, a SparkNote summary isn't going to talk about, but that we think offer more insights into these dynamics. We're going to call this the oblique angle, where we take a kind of alternate path into the text. And so we were talking before this, and you and I both kind of had a similar moment that we thought was an interesting microcosm of the bigger picture. So do you want to kind of give us the oblique angle and the section that will take us into a different direction?
I noticed a parallel between Achilles and his mother Thetis versus Hera and her son Hephaestus.
Yeah.
Mostly because they're mother-son relationships but they interact with each other in very different ways.
Yeah.
So they're like the same but different.
Yeah. So to start, we've talked a lot about the conversation between Thetis and Achilles. Can I just recap the conversation between Hephaestus and Hera so we can draw these parallels and talk about the same but differentness of them? Yeah. So right, Hera is trying to figure out what her husband Zeus is doing. She knows he has some scheme going, and he's pretty vague about it. He threatens her that she better not keep sort of meddling in his business. And she is trying to figure out whether she should kind of stand her ground and like keep pushing, or whether she should back off. And Hephaestus, her son, comes and basically counsels her to chill. He shares a story about when he pissed Zeus off, and Zeus like picked him up and threw him off a mountain. And is basically like, yeah, you don't want to piss off Zeus. Things are going to go bad for us. Things are going to go bad for the mortals. And let's just kind of have a happy feast. And there's a banquet that they're planning after they've all returned from Ethiopia, I think is where they were. And so he's just like, let's chill.
Yeah. So Hephaestus doesn't stand by his mom in that scenario, versus when Achilles asks his mother for help, she stands up for him.
Right. Yeah, so there's one opposite, right? In the Achilles part, it is the son asking the mother for help, and the mother offering counsel. But in the Hera Hephaestus, it is the son sort of trying to counsel the mother. So the who's helping who is reversed. But it's still, I think, very similar, because it's this like, do I stand up for myself? Do I fight? Do I take a stand against the sort of cruel leader who is being really arrogant? Or do I kind of back off and just let him have his way?
Yeah. It also is interesting because Thetis brings up a whole story about how I helped Zeus out this one time, so I think Zeus will help me out. But then Hephaestus brings up the example of one time I stood up to dad. I don't actually know. Zeus is not his dad.
The family tree is really messy.
Yeah. Whatever. Hephaestus was like, the one time I stood up to Zeus, he literally threw me off the mountain. I fell for days, and I landed in a place where I knew no one.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. It's actually hilarious. Like,
it's like that scene in Spy Kids where they're like falling down the tunnel for
yeah,
hours
and they're
hours.
yeah. It's like that, literally like that. It's actually hilarious where he's like, yeah, that one time he threw me off the mountain. And so because of that, I don't think we should get in his face at all. Again, the contrast between like, that's like hilarious. But then like
in like a slapstick way.
Yeah. But then compared to that, like Achilles and like, they're like actually trying to do something down in the mortal world. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's also interesting where if we draw these parallels, we then also have to draw the parallel between Zeus and Agamemnon, right? In both cases, Zeus and Agamemnon are the kind of antagonists, the people who are being sort of threatening and unjust and maybe should be stood up to. And I think in another kind of opposite way, the power dynamics there are different because as we already talked about, right, Achilles does have real power over Agamemnon. He is actually a really good warrior, and there is a sense in which his withdrawing from the war will have real impacts on Agamemnon and the rest of the army. And so Achilles actually can stand up. He has a means by which he can negatively impact Agamemnon. And I wonder how much the Hephaestus Hera conversation is sort of clouded by the fact that Zeus seems to have the most power of all the gods, and like what might Hera actually be able to do. Obviously, we don't, like, the conversation's not that long. It's just, like 10 or 20 lines at the end. So we don't really know. But I wonder how much that difference is there where Achilles actually does have a means by which to stand up for himself, whereas Hera might be sort of, going on a fruitless mission or something.
There's also a parallel in how Achilles and Agamemnon can threaten each other by taking away their prizes. But Zeus threatens Hera very explicitly with like physical violence. And which is interesting because they're immortal. So can he kill her? I don't know. Kind of not really.
The lack of actual direct violence between Achilles and Agamemnon, both in this chapter and for the rest of the book, like it's not spoiling that much to say, like they will never actually like lay hands on each other or cross swords with each other or anything like that. Like their conflict remains kind of passive aggressive in nature the entire book.
Yeah, but no spoilers. We see Hera being like really put in her place by Zeus. And later on, she does get schemy.
Right. But I think it goes back to, again, like, as a question of the difference between the mortals and the gods. Like, how do they differ from one another in the way they solve their problems? And how are they similar in the way they solve their problems? Because there are some great similarities, but then there are other major differences that I think really we're talking about this because the first chapter of any book really sets up the questions you'll have to ask and themes to trace throughout. And so we're not going to get to anything conclusive right here, but I think this is a main thing to really focus on as we read and discuss the rest. I think that's a pretty good place to wrap up. Do you have anything else you want to add about book one?
About book one?
Yeah.
I will say. I will say.
Not a place to wrap up. This is exciting.
I just want to drop that when I was reading book one, it really reminded me of Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings, which is something that I've read recently in the past couple years, all of the Stormlight Archive, and Owen has yet to dip his toes. I'm very excited for you to do that one day.
Yes, it's on my list.
Yeah. But the whole setup with the way, like the camp and how all of the Achaeans, the Greeks, they're kind of united, but mostly individual sort of city states, how they're trying to do this one thing all together, but they're not super united in purpose, and they're more kind of all vying for respect and physical, like, and actual wealth.
Yeah.
And so they're all like, they all have different agendas, and they're not necessarily concerned with what's the purpose of the war. Are we going to win it? Everyone's kind of in it for themselves.
Right.
And it is extremely similar to the setup at the beginning of the Way of Kings. The war that's been fought for years. People have forgotten the purpose of why they're there. There's all these high princes who are each, trying to do their own thing. They each have their own agenda. It's extremely similar. And I just really liked that connection.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a connection that's there on purpose, but yeah.
Yeah. I do. I mean, yeah, I'm excited to read these books when I get to them.
Yeah.
But in many ways, I think there's parallels to like real wars as well, right? Like
Yeah,
in
of
World
course.
War II, like what did Italy and Japan really have that much in common? Like not a ton. Like there wasn't like this clear, like these are all of our goals and we are working closely in tandem. Like the Italians were doing their stuff and the Japanese were doing their stuff, and they had similar interests, but not like, that seems to be a maybe just a true thing about when war happens, that it's hard to actually unite people under the same goal.
I'll just take any excuse to bring up the Stormlight Archive. So I just thought I would.
Well, maybe to tie back to the previous episode, I'm curious what your overall thoughts of reading the Wilson translation, sort of the first kind of lengthier read, were, because we both talked about, trying new translations for the first time, and I'm curious your impressions.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it so far. It's extremely readable. It's extremely understandable. And I mean, that's it so far. My favorite part so far is that she describes, I got it right here. This is my favorite line so far. At this, Achilles, son of Peleus, was deeply troubled, and in his inmost heart, inside his hairy chest, was split in two. I just love the hairy chest part.
Do you think she's trying to intentionally sort of characterize both of their anger as kind of like petty and immature, that like that's kind of this like passive aggressive, like, oh, this hairy chested man is so kind of like split and torn about all this? Do you think that's kind of why she's doing that? Or what makes you like it? Or just fun?
I think, I don't know, there's something, no, I'm just like on Achilles' side. And the fact that he has a hairy chest just means I'm more on his side, I think. Agamemnon doesn't get a hairy chest. So I think I'm on his side. That's all I can say. Like,
yeah, that's fair. I'll say of the Chapman, it's kind of what I expected, where because of the meter and the rhyme, it's actually kind of easy to like gloss over and like glaze over some sections. So I have to like go back and reread, like, wait, I just kind of like got in the rhythm and wasn't actually paying attention. So it can be hard to read in that sense, but there are so many interesting couplets and moments that are like really punctuated of like, oh, that's a great image, or that's a great description. And so it's kind of a roller coaster of like lows of like, it's just kind of plodding on, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's awesome. Maybe I just have to get better at reading it and get more used to it, but I've enjoyed it so far, and I'm definitely going to keep going with it. I will also keep going with the Butler translation audiobook. So we'll put a link to the description as you are preparing for episode 2 to come out next week. If you want to read book 2, again, I'm recording audiobook versions of Samuel Butler's prose translation, posting them on YouTube with the full text if you want to read along. And so you're welcome to follow along with that in preparation for next episode.
And also, I would like to call anyone listening to put questions in the comment section. If you have any questions, just put them in there. And if we start getting questions, I kind of want the tail end of each episode to become like a little mailbag section where we'll answer a couple questions from the previous episode's comment section.
Yeah. So episode 2 next week about book 2 of the Iliad. We'll continue in the same pattern, and, well, we'll see where it goes.
Yep. Until then, happy reading.
Happy reading.